Hey everybody, it's Mrs. Clemens and Mr. Marshall. I don't know why I make Mr. Marshall have a funny voice. He sounds like a normal human, although he does do the caw. It is still U.S. history flipped. Oh, crazy Clemens. All right, guys, it's that time of the year, folks, and we are at midterm review. Has our class only half started? Has it already half ended? Is it half over? I don't know. Just don't know. But we do have our midterm and we need to review it up, my friends. All right, so let's get started here and talk about colonialism. How did the colonists illustrate their ability to govern themselves? Very carefully. No. They created their own governments. And the big three that we talk about are the Mayflower Compact. Now, listen, for this particular test, because I know this particular test, do you need to know the definitions of the Mayflower Compact, the New England Town Meetings, and the Virginia House of Burgesses? No, but it is always good to kind of study that stuff. So the Mayflower Compact, that's when the Pilgrims or Puritans came on over from England, and before they landed, they said, all right, this is how we're going to run things, and they set up a democratic government. The New England Town Meetings, if you can believe it, happened in New England, and it was a form of direct democracy. And the Virginia House of Burgesses was our first representative government here in America. Of course, we weren't America yet. It was the American colonies. All right, the Revolutionary War. What was the purpose of Declaration of Independence? If you could believe it, to declare independence. And it stated our reasons why we wanted independence as grievances against the king. You did this, king. You took away our freedom of speech. You imprisoned us, mean king. What influenced the ideas presented in the Declaration of Independence? It's the Enlightenment, with ideas like natural rights, the consent of the governed, and the right to rebel. All right, here's our big one, and this is really important. I think I've got like 25 slides here on the Constitution, so really, really important. All right, who had the power under the Articles? It was the states. The Articles of Confederation was a loose national government, a loose association of the states. So the national government did not have a lot of power. The states had the power. What was the weaknesses? There were a bunch of them. They didn't have a single national currency. Well, they had a national currency, but then you also had 13 state currencies. There was no national executive or president. The national government couldn't tax. There was difficulty raising army. There were a bunch of other things, but those are the big ones. So they get together. They decide, hey, we need to get rid of this Articles of Confederation, and they start getting ready to make a constitution. Now, there were anti-federalists that were not very happy about the Constitution. They were worried that their rights were going to be taken away, and so the way that they were convinced to ratify or to approve the Constitution was to add a Bill of Rights. What compromises were involved? You know, they talk about the Constitution being a bundle of compromises. Well, part of the reason was because there was a bundle of compromises. So the first one, great compromise. It created a bicameral legislature. Mrs. Clemens, what's a bicameral legislature? Oh my God, I'm so glad you asked. It's a two-house Congress. Mrs. Clemens, what are the two houses of our Congress? Oh my God, you asked such great questions. How did you know? It's the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House, by the way, based on population, Senate, 2 per state. The 3/5 compromise is our fun racist compromise. It said that each slave is going to equal 3/5 of a person for representation in Congress, specifically the House of Reps. And the Electoral College, it's not that the people are going to be electing the president. Oh, no. It's the Electoral College. Still talking about the Constitution, what are the roles and powers of each branch of the government? The legislative, they make the laws, that's Congress. The executive, they enforce the laws, that's the president. The judicial, they interpret the laws. Now, I put the Supreme Court because that's the highest in the land, but there are many other courts that do that. What is the system of checks and balances? It prevents one branch from overpowering another one. And it's good to know some of those branches, some examples. So the legislative branch, they can override vetoes, which we're going to talk about in a second, with a 2/3 vote. They can impeach. Remember, impeachment starts in the House, where you bring up charges, and then the trial is held in the Senate. 2 presidents have been impeached, but no one has been convicted. They're going to approve appointments like judges, and they're going to ratify treaties. The executive, they can veto. So let's say Congress passes a law, they don't like it, the president can veto it. They also make appointments like, for example, judges or cabinet members. And the judicial branch has judicial review, which is the ability of the Supreme Court to decide whether or not laws are constitutional. Mrs. Clemens, there's a case or something, right, that talked about judicial review? Oh my God, you're the smartest. Yeah, it's Marbury versus Madison. You should have known that. If I wanted to, how could I change the Constitution, you might ask? Like, let's say I don't like the Electoral College and I want to get rid of it. I need to make an amendment, baby. Amend it up. All right, still talking about the Constitution. What is federalism? How does it work? It's the division of power between the state and national governments. And I believe in a later question, we're going to talk a little bit more about how it works. What's the elastic clause? All right, this is really important. The elastic clause is known by 3 different names. They all mean the same thing. The elastic clause is the same thing as the necessary and proper clause, which is the same thing as implied powers, and it's the ability to stretch the power of the Constitution beyond what's actually written there. So we have loose interpretation where we're super stretching, and strict interpretation where we're not stretching too much, basically going according to how the Constitution is written. All right, so now back to federalism from number 11. How do the reserved, concurrent, and delegated powers apply to federalism? All right, so reserved are powers that only the states have, like regulating marriage. That's why different states have different marriage laws. Licensing both drivers and professionals. Concurrent powers, those are powers that are shared between the state and national governments, like taxing or making laws. Delegated powers are powers that only the national government have, like, for example, to declare war and coin money. What is that unwritten Constitution? It's things that aren't written in the Constitution, but we have them because of precedent. So like the 2-term presidency, where the President Washington, for example, ran twice, then went home and died, and then the next guy that was able to run twice and win was Jefferson. He ran twice, won, went home and died. And that's what they did. Political parties, no, nowhere in the Constitution does it say we're going to have political parties, but yeah, we've got them. And congressional committees in order to help pass laws. Doesn't say we have to have them. We have them because it just makes sense. It helps to organize things. All right, well, that's the start here of our review guide. We'll do a little bit more later. Hope you enjoyed it and keep studying.